Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news this Monday morning. I told you there would be some big reveals coming out this morning and, well, a bit of an ownership conflict between Joel Glazer and Sir Jim Ratcliffe to add to the utter dismay and disappointment and despair of being a Man United fan at the moment. Also, look, we spoke intensely about what Amarim had to say after the game yesterday. If you haven't watched that video last night, it's very clear that he wants huge changes this summer, but his plans are going to be in tatters. I want to start on a positive talking about Yoro, but I also want to say that there are a few things we want to discuss here. You're getting stories coming out that Joel Glazer has a daily obsession with Manchester United. We're told by Sir Jim Ratcliffe that the Glazers haven't got a bad bone in their body, that they're good people. There is absolutely no evidence of that over the last 20 years, and yet people still keep thinking that Sir Jim's not a puppet to the Glazers. Joel Glazer never went away. He's been obsessively running this club on a day-to-day basis for 10 years and people treat it like it's breaking news. There is some sort of conflict going on at Manchester United in relation to the ownership, of course. But I wake up this morning and I see clips and tweets being sent to me about United fans saying, let's get rid of Amarim no matter what happens in the Europa League. I don't care who the manager is, anybody over Amarim. Hold on a minute. No. Don't project utter drivel and then not give a solution. Don't give hypothetical solutions without hypothetical answers. If you want to sack Amarim, which a lot of us don't shout sack Amarim. Tell us who you're bringing in next so we can have a really big laugh at what utter rubbish you're talking about. Sack Amarim. What are you doing it for? The clicks, the retweets. What are we doing next? Because I tell you what, some of us are actually seriously concerned about the state of our football club, and we don't just shout sack Amarim thinking sacking another manager is going to provide any solution. Who comes in next? Xavi, with a style of football that doesn't suit this squad and needs $500 million as well. Oh, we're going to get Nagelsmann, who's not going to leave because he's got a World Cup. Are you genuinely thinking Southgate, a guy who would bore a corpse to death? Come on, let's get real. Who are you bringing in next? Or actually, do you want to turn that in your mind and go, actually, instead of talking about a manager who is basically saying what you're saying, that the club is a mess and needs wholesale changes, which I thought we all actually agreed on. Instead of looking at the manager, why are we not looking at an ownership that sold 25% to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, and a Sir Jim Ratcliffe who got into bed with the Glazers and proceeded to deliver the worst season we've ever had in Premier League history? Clubs have been relegated with the points that we've got. I think Birmingham City got relegated with the points that we've got. And yet people are talking about the manager who only came in at Christmas. This festering pile of shit that we have watched for 9 months started in May last year. Ruben Amorim was playing hipster football with Sporting as one of the best managers in Europe. He didn't start the fire. Who did? You've got Sir Jim Ratcliffe, you've got Joel Glazer, you've got Omar Barada, you've got Jason Wilcox. They're all still here, sat there with a straight face, watching games like they are disappointed with Amarim. Hold on, let's all turn around, take a look at the actual architects of this season instead of trying to blame another fall guy. You are, as a fan base, if you are Amarim out, an absolute dessert to our ownership. They must bloody devour you every bloody day. They must love you because you allow them to not take the blame. You actually go, can't be their fault. It's got to be this new guy's fault who hasn't had any time, who wasn't responsible, but let's blame him. It's like walking into a business. Let's say we walk into a pension company that's completely and utterly ripped off every client. You know, you've got Doris and Dave who think they're retiring at 65 and getting $500,000. And then they go, no, we've spent it all on everything else. There's no money left. And then Doris and Dave and all the other hundreds of people who've lost their pension, they turn up at the front door and then the cleaner gets sent out to the front. It was his fault. It was his fault. I haven't even got a login. Yeah, it's his fault. Like, it's incredible. I find it incredible, the amount of people, and some of these people apparently are intelligent, who sit there and go, no matter what, Amarim's got to go. Amarim's got to go. And I'm like, what? What are you actually talking about? Do you understand the modern concepts of football? They are businesses, mate. The days of a manager running a football club from top to bottom have been gone for years. Everything that's happened this season was masterminded by a structure that you won't talk about. When is somebody going to talk about this CEO that we took from Manchester City who appears to be fucking shit? I mean, let's just talk about Barada for a moment. Where's his culpability? All he ever does is deliver Glazer sound bites. Got no intention of building any bridges with any part of this fan base. He's got no intention of showing any passion for this football club. He is a glorified Glazer. He is a business guy who backs everything they do. He is the CEO of this football club. Richard Arnold and Ed Woodward were held way more accountable than Barada, but because he came in from Man City, it's absolutely fine. He wasn't even the CEO at Man City. Why is he not getting any stick? Wilcox, he's buying loads of young players. We're teaching our young players to lose. We're teaching them to lose. Our big obsession is buying bloody teenagers and sticking them into the team. I've never heard such shit in all my life. How can you buy young players and tell us that in 5 years' time they're going to be world beaters when you're teaching them to lose? Imagine getting an 18-year-old who's going to be the world's best boxer, and then for the next 4 years you just put them in the ring and tell them not to punch and get knocked out. Oh, don't worry. By the time he's 25, he's suddenly just going to flick a switch and start being the best in the world. We're teaching our youngsters French. And then we expect in 4 years' time, they're going to go over to bloody China and be the Prime Minister or whatever they've got over there. And they can't even speak the language. How's that going to work? And they're not even from China. It's incredible. We're teaching we're flying under this banner of youth and future. And we're teaching them to lose. Who's behind that? Wilcox. Who's the CEO? Barada. Who's the owner? Joel Glazer and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. But let's blame Amarim. It's so logical that the manager, who didn't even start this, is responsible for it. Oh, we could get relegated with these points. The manager can't survive. Real Madrid and Bayern Munich wouldn't put up with this. No, they bloody well wouldn't, because the owner would sack the CEO. I mean, what everybody is completely in tune with here is that Ruben Amorim will not be sacked. He will be given the summer. And if the summer doesn't work out and the season goes the same way, he will get sacked. So basically, our excuse for Amorim is that he hasn't had a pre-season, he hasn't had a transfer window, and next season he will be judged. Okay, I'm fine with that. Absolutely, 100% agree with that. Wait a minute then. So Barada's excuse as a failed CEO, Wilcox's excuse as, very high up on the board as technical director, Sir Jim's excuse, Joel's excuse is, we're jumping on that train as well. If basically Amarim, we're on that. Hold on a minute. No. Ruben Amorim gets next season because he hasn't had a pre-season and he hasn't had a transfer window. You lot can take you lot can take responsibility for why the season's been shit, because you are solely responsible. Why are we not changing the CEO? Dan Ashworth got sacked quick enough. Barada's, I don't know. Woodward and Arnold weren't great CEOs, but I tell you what, you've got to go some to beat the last 12 months under Barada. It's an absolute shit show. From cutting charities to knocking Old Trafford down, to raising ticket prices, the list, to sacking half the workforce, to, sacking Ten Hag, spending £300 million, bottom of the league, basically, lowest ever points total. Why it's very strategically clever. Nobody anywhere has written an article or spoken anything about the failure of the CEO or the technical director. Nobody has. I understand that Joel Glazer and Sir Jim Ratcliffe are responsible, but they're not going to sack themselves. But why is it constantly on radio stations, on the media, from ex-players, from certain United fans, it's always the manager under scrutiny? And it literally is like sacking the cleaner when it's, everybody else with the logins to be nicking people's money, whatever it is that's gone wrong. It's incredible to me that there is no conversation about the real culprits of what's gone on this season, and that they get to hide behind the manager, which actually exposes the real truth. If you are a CEO or you are a technical director, you don't get judged on your performance. You basically hide behind the manager. And if the manager does well, you do well. If the manager fails, you sack them. What about a little bit of scrutiny of what their fucking job is? Chief Executive Officer, Technical Director. Those roles are far, far, far superior to the manager because you can sack the manager. You are culpable. You are responsible. Nobody wants to talk about that. Incredible, isn't it? Absolutely incredible that that is not on the agenda. Actually, all I'm reading this morning is, 17 losses. Really, we should be looking at the manager. Absolutely not. I actually think that this football club is destroyed. In fact, let me just read you this, because I think sometimes you do get common sense from rival fans. So there is an X account, Twitter account, whatever you want to call it, called the Magic Top Hat. I think they're an Arsenal fan, but they're quite good in relation to financials and stuff like that. Not a Man United fan. This is what they said this morning. I don't think people are really deep in what's happening at Manchester United, other than maybe some Man United fans. They have the second largest net spend in world football over the past 3 years. The seventh highest wages in European football, third highest in the Premier League, the largest debt levels in football without having a new stadium. Their own is dilapidated. They're 16th in the Premier League, and as matters stand, they will have a big PSR hole next season, one that not even Champions League revenue would fill unless they get to a quarter-final. Their staff are demoralised by a clueless, supposedly non-exec board member who seems to run the show as if it's one of his low-margin chemical companies and not one of the biggest brands in sport. And it has owners that clearly either don't know how or don't care enough to help it. Despite being an Arsenal fan, I don't find it funny. I think it's sad. It's like seeing a once great boxer as a fragile old man with dementia. Football means so much to the people in this country, yet so many clubs have been taken over by awful people who don't see themselves as stewards or custodians. They're more often vampires and cruel. Will the football regulator address that? And that's from an Arsenal fan. That's from somebody who understands finances probably more than most of us do. And it's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying, because some of that stuff is like, what? Even if we need to get to the quarterfinals of the Champions League just to be financially stable next season. We might not even be in the Champions League next year. And also, let's not forget, that all it takes for people to start talking about Amarim is a loss to West Ham. All it takes to ignore that is a link to Gyökeres. It's incredible how spoon-fed some elements of the media and our fan base have become to ignoring the real issues. And I get bored of it. I get bored of it as well. I mean, Glazer out movements are, it's like the weather. Comes back, it's gone. It's come back, it's gone. The club is in major trouble. And yet we still want to start putting statements out there of, I don't care whether we win the Europa League or not, we need to sack the manager. I mean, if I had an analogy for this that could do it justice, I'd give it you. But it literally is like your house is on fire and you're in the back garden spraying the grass with a water pistol. That's what sacking and blaming the manager is. Your whole house, your dream house is on fire and you're in the back garden. Not forget the water pistol. You're taking a piss on the garden that's not even on fire. Don't worry, I'm putting it out. You're just not. You're just not. I find it actually really frustrating how the manager keeps getting the blame for this, when we've got people who are paid to run that football club, a CEO, a technical director. What does Sir David Brailsford do? I mean, what was his strategic review? Basically sack people. I mean, I've got to respect, I'm being sarcastic here, by the way. I just love a 4-month strategic review of a broken football club where your solution is to sack half the workforce. I mean, I tell you what, pat yourself on the back there, mate. I mean, it's absolutely inspirationally out of the box thinking, that, isn't it? The club's a mess. Let's sack people. I mean, it's just absolutely useless. And look, I'm not reigniting any Glazer out movement because it's futile. There isn't one. No one's ever going to do anything about it. What I'm hoping is that someone like Sir Jim Ratcliffe actually fucking listens for once and realises that Fans are fed up of being, humiliated, yes, manipulated, certainly. And, I hope the only movement that could work at this football club in our fan base is fans just saying, you know what, if you're Amarim out, shut up. Like, literally shut up unless you've got a solution, because all you're doing is the Glazers' work. We've got to stop having the fall guy being the manager. We have to stop. It doesn't do anything. The next guy comes in, he does a press conference, everyone gets excited, and within 6 months, they're finished. Absolutely finished. One day, I hope we get like a 22-year-old manager, hipster, who's got really thick, dark hair. And it'd be amazing to see a 22-and-a-half-year-old grey. It really will, because we destroy these people. We destroy them. We've destroyed some of the best managers in the game. We destroyed Jose Mourinho. We destroy these people, and we do Glazers' work. And what I would say to Sir Jim Ratcliffe is, look, maybe you love Omar Barada because he does the stuff that you want to do. But I'm telling you what, he's a shit CEO on the base of it. Maybe you should be sacking him. Maybe instead of, all I see is, if we have a bad start to the season, Amarim's gone by Christmas. Why should he be gone by Christmas? Why is it always the manager that's got to go by Christmas? So what we're basically saying is the debt, the sackings, the increase in ticket prices, the worst ever Premier League points total, a shit squad, they're all Amarim's fault, are they? I don't think he's responsible for even any of those. The Premier League season, okay, probably a bit of culpability, but there's certainly context. He's not responsible for the squad. He's not responsible for the debt. He's not responsible for the ticket prices. He's not responsible for the sackings. And yet everybody's going, if it doesn't improve, he'll be gone by Christmas. Why is the manager gone by Christmas? Why is the CEO not gone by Christmas? Why is the technical director not gone by Christmas? Why is Brailsford not gone by Christmas? It's always the same, and it's bloody boring because it won't solve it. And as I said at the start, if you're there going, Amarim's got to go, anybody Amarim, shut up and tell us who it's going to be. Because your answer will be, I don't have to say that. I don't have to do that. I don't have to tell you. No, you don't. But if you want people to respect your opinion, I want to know the solution. Maybe you've landed on a piece of information that we're, as mere mortals haven't thought through. I want to know who it is you're bringing in next. I'm really interested. Who are you bringing in next? And don't tell me Thomas Frank to steady the ship, because I'll give it a year. I'll give it a year before you go, I don't like this brand of football. He's never going to take us any higher than 8th. This ain't good enough. You'll just bloody moan. You'll moan again. What we're trying to achieve here is Premier League title winners with good football. I don't know whether anybody didn't get the brief. People talk about standards and they say that people like myself don't have standards. I do have standards, but the standards are winning the title, playing good football. Now tell me who's going to do that. Because I don't think it's bloody possible, to be honest with you. Not under this regime, but that's the standard. You can talk about standards all you like. The standard is winning the Premier League, playing good football. Now tell me how we're going to do that. Because I don't think we are. I really, really don't. And also, just before we move on to some of the stuff that's coming out about the ownership, I think it's worth saying that, with regards to Manchester United's season this season, and obviously we've lost 17 games. We've not even hit 40 points yet. Our lowest ever Premier League points total is 58, 59, something like that. It's abysmal. It's shocking. It's absolutely dreadful. But to those people who want to put that on the manager, let's just have a little bit of a home truth here. You want to blame the manager for the Premier League season that we've had. Okay. Now, whether that's Ten Hag or Amarim, answer me this. We do player ratings every single game of the season, right? Tell me, on average, how many Man United players across the season are consistently below 5? 6 is average, 5 is below average. How many of them consistently are below a 5 in an average game? I would say 4 or 5. How many of them are below a 6, average or below? I would say across the whole team, 7 or 8. Every single game, we have about 3/4 of our team average or below in a Man United shirt. And we get 1 or 2, if we're lucky, who have a good game, maybe a 7. Every week, consistently below a 6, over Easily more than half the team. We do them. Go back and watch the videos. They're there. You could spend a whole day doing it. Sun's nice. Get your laptop outside. Get your pen and paper. Go through every player ratings this season and count up the amount of players per game who are 6 or below, average or below. And I guarantee you at least 70% every game of the Man United starting team are 6 or below. How is that down to Ten Hag or the manager? Well, it's the tactics, bollocks. Absolute bollocks. If I get somebody to come and work with me today and I say, I want you to do this, 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 and this is how you do it, right? And then they don't do it, is it my fault? Even if I check on them every hour and say, you keep getting that wrong, can you do that? If people don't do it when they're given instructions, whose fault is it? 2 separate managers. And this has been going on for years as well. A professional footballer has a professional integrity to at least go out there and do their job. No one's asking them to be a 9 out of 10, but, a 7 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10, whatever. We never get that. We never get that. And it's been going on for years. And yet again, people want to blame the manager for that. This is low IQ footballers who consistently underachieve. Some of them are kids. I expect that. Some of them don't do that. The Brunos of this world put in a lot of good performances. Of course they do. But the vast majority of that team, week in, week out, don't deliver. Look at yesterday. Look at the game yesterday. Are we blaming the manager for that? Who is embarrassed, baffled and stunned by a team that just can't do it? There are many problems at this football club, and I think blaming it on the manager again is just lazy. And some people are lazy. You know what? Some people are lazy. Some people want a quick fix. Some people just want to go, let's change that. It's the easiest thing to do, and let's hope again. Some of us do know the problems at Manchester United run very, very deep. And I've said for quite a while, 5 years, I think. 5 years. Our biggest chance of success was the Glazers going, new owners coming in, hitting the reset button and rebuilding the lot. We're not rebuilding the lot. We're trying to do it on the cheap, and it won't work. We're going to get into some of your comments, but I wanted to bring this in at the start of the show. I sort of went on a tangent there. Sometimes it happens. Bit of positive news. Amarim said about Yoro, it's a small thing. We don't think it's as bad as it could be. The interesting thing about that is even a small thing is problematic when the final is basically in a week. It's a week on Wednesday, the final. So even a small thing could be a big thing when it comes to Yoro. So look, great that it's not that bad. But is it not that bad that he'll be back at the start of the season? Or is it not that bad that he'll play in the final? Spurs, Kulusevski, apparently he's fine. Hopefully Yoro's going to be fine. But I guess we will just have to see what happens with that. Now, let me just bring some news that's coming out this morning just around the ownership. Because obviously we spent a little bit of time talking about that. But I think... let me just find the quotes. I mean, I'm just I'm just on X at the moment at Martianball, just quoting somebody I don't know who. Amarim hasn't shown anything to be backed by the board in the summer. Again, I just think this is arse around face. Why should Amarim be showing to the board a reason to be backed? I wouldn't trust this board with a cat. I trust Amarim over anybody on that board. Why are fans saying things like Amarim hasn't showed anything to the board to be trusted? It's almost like you trust the board then. I mean, why don't you walk around with a Sir Jim cap on and a Glazer t-shirt? What are you talking about, the board? Since when has any Man United fan trusted our board? Since when has any Man United manager had to prove themselves to that board? They're bloody useless. They're absolutely... I trust every manager we've had over the board. I'd rather Ollie was the board and the board that sacked him wasn't the board. Like, I couldn't give a toss about the board's opinion. I give a toss about your opinion. And the vast majority look at it and go, we brought a manager in who doesn't suit the team, who hasn't had a pre-season, who hasn't had a transfer window. Why would you be sat there as a United fan going, I wouldn't trust him with a summer transfer window? why did we bring him in then? Like, what did you think was going to happen? We'd start playing 3-4-3 at Christmas, and suddenly all these shit players were going to turn into ballers. You can't polish a turd. How many times? You can't polish a turd. Anyway, let me go through some of these comments. One person familiar with the business of Manchester United says the question is whether the upheaval of the past year is the beginning of the post-Glazer era or if there is a post-Ratcliffe era to come. Maybe there is another phrase coming. So this is all coming out from The Athletic, that there are issues in the boardroom. I mean, surprise, surprise. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's claim that Manchester United were at risk of going bust by Christmas did not sit easy with the Glazer family. Joel Glazer is said to be daily obsessed with Manchester United. And, you know, a few other bits coming out as well around potential conflicts in the dressing room. I mean, we can spend ages on this, or we can just simply say, you know, what I'm about to say, and you can react to it. So Jim Ratcliffe has said things as if he's the owner of Manchester United, and some of those things have frustrated the Glazers. So Jim Ratcliffe is also frustrated by some of the things the Glazers do. So Jim Ratcliffe has tried as a minority shareholder to arse-lick the Glazers on many occasions. He did that interview, didn't he, in the Times a few weeks ago, where he basically said that they're nice people. They haven't got a bad bone in their body. So it feels like they don't agree on things, but they're desperately trying to show a united front. And as Paul Lucas said, they seem to be obsessed with making poor decisions, one of which, it's not an unnamed source again, it's coming from The Athletic, Kieran, which is what I literally just said. Maybe get your ears cleaned out. This is all coming in from The Athletic, so it is well sourced. It's really interesting because it's almost like, and I know a lot of us were against Sir Jim Ratcliffe getting into bed with the Glazers because the Glazers are an enemy of this football club, and if you get into bed with them, you are an enemy as well, and I stand by those words. But on another level, it was, you know, I completely agree with those statements. I said them at the time, and I still agree with them now, and I'm sure many of you do. I think it was a catastrophe for the football club when Sir Jim Ratcliffe bailed the Glazers out. But even trying to be sympathetic to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, you're a fool, mate. You're an absolute fool. The vanity of owning part of Manchester United clouded your judgment. Because how could it ever work? If I want to buy a restaurant and I can only buy 25% of it, and the people I'm buying it from were owners of that restaurant that customers don't like, why would I do that? Also, I don't know these people. I've never worked with them before. So I'm buying into a business where the customers don't like the current owners. I'm bailing them out. And then I've never worked with them before either. So I don't know whether we're compatible. And I'm doing it just because I want to say to everybody, I own 25% of that restaurant. So take away the personal feeling of I was gutted that he bailed them out, and I see him as an enemy of the football club for doing it. Looking at it like pragmatically, this was never going to work. You're not brothers. You're not business partners. You've never worked together before. And you've got Joel Glazer, who runs that football club daily and is obsessed with it. And then you've got Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who's on a vanity project trying to rebuild the club. You've got two strangers patting each other on the back, pretending like they're lifelong friends, trying to rebuild the biggest football club in the world. And they're basically not agreeing on stuff. So not only have we got a team on the pitch that is in major crisis, we've also got conflict in the boardroom. I mean, things can't get much worse, apart from the fact that we've got a massive game on Wednesday. I think this was inevitable. And I can't remember who it was who said it. I think it was like Sky Business or Reuters, or it was some business observer. They weren't a football fan. And they said, taking the emotion out of it, how does this work? How does this work? Unless there is a period of takeover from Sir Jim in the next 2 years, where it's a staged takeover, where they sort of like handing over the business and, you know, learning the ropes. How would this ever work? How can two sets of, you know, owners with their own ideas rebuild a broken football club whilst also not agreeing on a lot of things. It's a shambles. It's an absolute shambles. And maybe we are heading towards, what did it say? Maybe we're heading towards a post-Glazer era, or maybe we're heading towards a post-Sir Jim era. And what that means is Sir Jim Ratcliffe going to be able to take control of the club from the Glazers, or will the Glazers say it's not working out, goodbye Sir Jim? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, because the answer to that is Sir Jim Ratcliffe never had the money to buy the club in the first place, and it's worth more than it was then. And the Glazers never wanted to sell. So I don't know what we're heading towards. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But one theory would be we're heading towards a civil war in the boardroom where we have to pick sides to get full ownership. And then we're going to be back where we were, where we're basically trying to get Sir Jim to own the whole fucking football club, which he could have done in the first place if he hadn't got into bed with the Glazers. So we could be heading towards, I mean, I'm not saying anytime soon, but we could be heading towards an ownership battle. And those ownership battles can go on for bloody ages. So I don't think Sir Jim Ratcliffe's got $6 billion anyway. But he shouldn't have done this deal. From a business point of view, I mean, from a United fan point of view, I wish he'd never done it. But from a business point of view, he never should have done it anyway. You don't own the club, mate. You own 25%, 28%. They own the club. You don't own the club. You've basically got to constantly kiss their arse and be a string puller for them. That's, you know, a puppet, because they own it. And look, I can't remember who said this, but it might have been Sir Jim. It was Sir Jim. Sir Jim said it, didn't he, in that interview? He said, well, at the end of the day, the Glazers don't really do anything. They're over there in America letting us do what we want. Bollocks. Absolute bollocks. It's true what it says in The Athletic. Joel Glazer's obsessed with that club on a daily basis. There were articles written about it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that if you wanted to buy a stapler, you had to email Joel Glazer. He's always ran that football club over the last decade like his personal project. When Sir Jim Ratcliffe said they haven't got a bad bone in their body, they're good people, and they just want, you know, they're over in America just leaving us to it. The whole interview was just nonsense. Because anybody will tell you who works in that football club that Joel Glazer is very hands-on and always has been. He's the silent assassin. And what's happened over the last year is that everything that happens at that club, whether it be ticket price rises, sackings, whatever, they're all Sir Jim's. Because that's obviously part of the deal. But how can a guy with 28%, who is only meant to be responsible for the footballing side of things, raise ticket prices, sack people who aren't in the football department, and rebuild a stadium? He's not. He's just a front. He's just a front. That's it. Just a pure front. Anyway, let me catch up on some of your comments. Amarim has to hit the ground running next season, says Robert. To a certain extent, Robert, but I feel like you're shifting us away from what we've just spent 20 minutes talking about. I actually disagree with what you're saying there, because what you're trying to do is to pin it all on Amarim again. And I would throw it back to you. Why are you obsessed with Amarim hitting the ground running next season? Why? I said this a few minutes ago. Why is it always about Amarim? Amarim's got to do this. Amarim's got to do that. He is literally a worker ant. Everything that he does is dictated to by people with the power behind him. Why has Amarim got to hit the ground running next season, otherwise he gets sacked? Why is the CEO not going to get sacked? Why is Jason Wilcox not getting sacked? You know, why is the ground not empty? Because they don't want the Glazers here anymore. It's always the manager. And KD says it's because he's the manager, you dope. I've spent 25 minutes, mate, explaining the situation at United. If there's anybody a dope, it's you. Why are you so obsessed with the manager? Why is the manager culpable for this season? Why is the manager going to get sacked next season if we start the season badly? You don't even know what summer transfer window he's being given. You don't even know who's going to get sold. But, oh no, the manager's got to hit the ground running next season. Of course he will get sacked. Of course he will get sacked. But we will be back where we are again. And you will probably be celebrating it. And I don't understand it. Like, look, I'll read this out. It's not mine. I'm not going to take credit for this. I saw this today and I thought, you know what, I'll bring it into the show, and I'd completely forgotten about it. This was from, let me have a look who wrote this. I think MUFC MPB retweeted it or something like that. Want to hear some truth? The fan base has also stopped behaving like we are a massive club. They've stopped demanding the best from the club. We are sitting 16th in the Premier League and fan thinks 1 to 2 changes to the team is acceptable going into next season. If this was Madrid or Bayern, a big change would be coming. Fans would be demanding the executives for answers for how the standards fell so much. How many times have Barada or Wilcox explained how this season was allowed to happen? What are they planning for us to get back to the top? Absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. Radio silence again. I said this at the end of last season. Ineos came in and never said a word. Ten Hag was on his own. Remember like the FA Cup, 8th place, Ten Hag, Ten Hag, Ten Hag. When Ten Hag got sacked, I felt that maybe they left him out to dry because he wasn't their guy. There was never any support publicly. Amarim comes in, nothing. We get nothing from Barada. We get nothing from Wilcox. We get nothing from Sir Jim. They do nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's always the manager. And shame on the journalists, shame on the media who allow this to happen. They should be way more educated than this. Why is the CEO not leading from the front? Why is his job not on the line? Why is he not explaining what's happening? All we've heard from Barada is Project 28. You can shove Project 28 up your arse, mate. You've got no chance. Absolutely no chance. Let me go through some of your comments. John says, Sir Jim bought the most expensive seat, Old Trafford, but rarely comes. Rock bottom, not here yet. Too many cracks beneath the surface still hidden, says John. Look, we have to win the Europa League final next week. Won't be in it next year. If we don't win it, God knows what happens. If we do win it, I hope it doesn't paper the cracks because there are some very big cracks. How is Amarim being judged on Ten Hag's players, says Parker? Look, I'll tell you two things, right? One, I think Arsenal will win the league next year. Two, Man United will be a much better team next season. Much better team. I wouldn't put us in the top 6, but I'd certainly put us in the top 8. We will be a better team next season because I know football, I know how it works, and I know that a lot of people in that football club are desperate for the season to end. And 4 or 5 players coming in can change the mentality of a team massively. I don't know who those players are going to be, but we will be much better. We won't be like Robert's talking about, he's got to hit the ground running. We'll be a better team next year. We might only be pitching ourselves in where Bournemouth are, but that will be a big improvement. But we won't be a top 4 team. You know, anybody who's saying Amarim needs to go at Christmas if we're not in the top 4, well, you may as well sack him now. What I'm looking at next year is 8th or above. Nothing below that. And can we scrape Europe? And that's whether we've got Champions League football or not. I'm looking at, I don't think it changes anything, actually. I think where I would project us to be next season, with or without Champions League football, is 8th or above, not below that. And that would be a decent season for season 1. I actually think with Champions League football, it probably balances it out. You play more games, but you probably can bring better players in. If you haven't got Champions League football, you play less games, but you probably have less quality players coming in. So I'm saying about 8th next season would be acceptable. But I don't know that people in our fan base would take that. I still think there's people who think we should be in the top 4, which is, you know what, I could do with a laugh on a Monday morning. They should have auditioned for the final, but there is any chance that players couldn't be bothered yesterday because they know that the league is dead. Well, no, there should be auditioning forms. Audi, welcome to the Members Club. Amarim has to hit the ground running, says Robert, because he will lose his job if he doesn't. Well, that's fair, Robert, 100%. How is it Amarim's problem when Rashi owes 4 million to gaming rooms and has problems with sleeping substances, says Varjosi? Okay. Okay, that was Varjosi's opinion. I've absolutely got no idea what we're talking about there, or why it's Rashford's fault. Phil says, I wouldn't be surprised if Ratcliffe is looking for an out. He's come in and isn't being given the hero treatment he thought he'd get, and also has realised running United is nothing like running Nice. Look, Phil, Sir Jim Ratcliffe could be a bloody legend of this football club. He could be a legend of this football club. If he put his hands up and said, I wanted to come in and make a change, but it's impossible with these owners. It's an absolute mess. I'm selling my shares and I want to get out, or I want to do a hostile takeover with support of Qatar or whoever, he could be a legend. But I don't think he'll do that because he's probably signed himself to the bloody limits of NDAs and things he can't do. He's probably completely trapped. He probably doesn't want to either. But look, the guy is in a position of power. If he wanted to, remove the Glazers, he's probably one of the most powerful people that could do it by, look, if it took civil war to get change, I think we'd all take it. If it took relegation to get change, I think we'd all take it. If somebody said, look, let me make this very clear. If somebody said to me, on the quiet, keep it to yourself, but United lose against Spurs, you get relegated next year, but the Glazers are gone, and in 2.5 years, you'll be back in the Premier League with proper owners going again, I'd take that decision for all of you. Now, some of you are going, oh, you shouldn't have done it. I 100% would take it. That's not going to happen, by the way. Don't start thinking, let's lose to Spurs. There's nothing that's going to happen there. But I would take easily, because I don't see United coming back. I would easily take 2.5 years of United being relegated and everything going wrong if I knew we were going to get a complete reset with new owners, no debt, and ambition to get back to the top. But it won't happen. Sandeep says, we're lucky not to be relegated. Don't think we'd bounce back as easily as we did in the 30s and the 70s. A lot of Amarim hate is from Rashford stands that are still pissed off, says Based. Amarim hate is illogical. I'll back him to the very end. He has my full support, says Josh. But you know what as well? I read this somewhere today as well, and it's so true. With Amarim, you get 100% transparency and about 80% context. So he's 100%, he's like Ranić, he's 100% open with the fans, and 80% of the time, I think he hits with what we want, which is pretty high. So what that means is he's very open, he doesn't keep anything back, and his decision-making matches ours about 80% of the time. I mean, Sir Alex Ferguson probably matched us 80% of the time. He still did weird stuff, even though he was amazing. With somebody like David Moyes or Solskjaer, you got about 20% transparency and maybe 50%, So we've got a manager who's ridiculously honest and open with us, and who also does things we agree with. Moyes spoke shit. It's, absolute shit. Man City are the favourites, all that crap. And we didn't agree with most of the things he did. It's quite rare to have a manager like... Look, we never should have got rid of Ranić. And we had a horrible season under Ranić. And we never should have got rid of him. Because we never let him do the job he wanted to do. We basically brought him in. He couldn't change anything because it was Ollie's season. And then when we were going to get him to change things, we sacked him. And yet he was one of the most open and honest managers we had. And most of what he said we agreed with. We've got a manager, again, who's completely open and honest with us, and most of us agree with a lot of the things he says. And we're actually thinking about getting rid of that to bring another puppet in. I mean, they will bring another puppet in as well. They will not bring in another Amarim who is open and honest. They will go, we can't have another manager like that who speaks with the fans and, is open and honest. We need a business guy. We need a guy who, speaks the language, spin. Would be interesting if you got one of your team to go through the ratings and work out a season average for each player, then we can discuss, as Martin Saunders. Yeah, I don't know whether I've got a spare week to let somebody go and do that, but you probably can do it quite simply some way or another. The solution for Amarim is Mourinho. He is finished on business, says Kyle. Okay. Wenger wouldn't have said what he did if Arsenal were in our position. He's a hypocrite, says Casey. Back the coach, sick of this cycle of new coaches coming in. Same thing will happen to him as well, says Sean. You're right, Mark. Amarim's the cleaner and Sir Jim has given him a mop with no head, says Fairway 5. This is all Sheikh Jazim's fault. He should have just given the Glazers what they wanted. Imagine where we would be, says Love United, hate the ops. Yeah, but you know what, mate? They were never selling. They were never selling. I know people think that was a solution, but they were never selling. Like, the Glazers were going to sell if there was no other option because they were in trouble financially. They would have had to sell and they would have sold. But they would have took the money from anybody that was going to allow them to stay. And that wouldn't have happened. Christian says, have you got anything positive to say? Christian, I'll leave you to the chat there. Because Christian thinks there's lots of positive things to talk about. So, Christian, maybe you could give us something positive to talk about. How does that work? Hi, Mark. Do you think there's still a chance Qatar can still put in a bid for us? Not at the moment, Dylan, no. Patrick Lynch says, if Amarim is sacked, it'll be amazing, but Barada and Wilcox will not be questioned, even though in 2 years they will have sacked 2 managers and a director of football. That alone should highlight an unacceptable level of incompetence, says Patrick Lynch. Look, I'd never really thought about it before, and most of it's come from stuff I've read online, but if I heard tomorrow Barada's been sacked, I wouldn't be shocked. I'd never thought about it, but if I heard tomorrow he's been sacked, I would actually go, well, he's the CEO of Manchester United. It's been an absolute shit show for 12 months. In every way, I'm not surprised. He actually probably deserves it. I wouldn't be shocked. I'd probably say that's quite a strong move from Sir Jim. But nobody's even thinking about it, because that's that's the manipulation of Manchester United Football Club. They protect their own, and they throw out people who are, fall guys. I'm not saying Barada should be sacked, by the way. I'm not. What I'm saying is, if he was sacked, would anybody sit there and go, oh, that's harsh? When you look at the last 12 months, when you look at the season, when you look at the money that's been lost, when you look at the sackings, when you look at the ticket price rises, when you look at all the bad PR, it's been a, I tell you what, it's hot weather in the UK at the moment, and if Ed Woodward's here, he's probably sat there with a glass of something going, you know what, even I wasn't that bad. All paths lead to Sir Jim's buddy Southgate, says Paul. To be fair to Sir Jim, Southgate was never his, it was Ashworth. The toxic cycle of hiring and firing has to stop, says Rob Always United. We have 7 more league goals than Ipswich, and they are championship level. Why not considering selling most of our attacking players, keep 1 or 2? Yeah, because Libertopian, I said this last night. I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you on selling players, but Kyle, I'm not even going to look. I'll read Kyle's super chat. I'm not even going to answer it. I'll just leave it. Right? He says, "I hear you. However, the manager must go." I'm not even going to fall for your troll comment. You've not even added why. You're just a troll. But thanks for the super chat. Going back to a more constructed and intelligent comment. Why not considering selling most of our attacking players and keep 1 or 2? I think this is the difference between what's realistic and what's not realistic. Like, I don't disagree with people when they sell Rasmus, Garnacho, Mount, Xerxes, whoever you want to sell from the attack. I wouldn't do it though, because you can't sell 15 players and buy 15 players in one summer. So if you do sell Garnacho, Rasmus, Xerxes, and you bring in Delap and Cunha and somebody else, 3 in, 3 out, you're in the same situation where we don't have enough depth. Like, we do need to keep these players, in my opinion, and bring other players in, because we're not. I am realistic. I don't like the way the club's run, but I'm also realistic to it. The Glazers aren't going anywhere, so Jim's not going anywhere. So we're not going to sell 10 players and buy 10 players. The maximum we're going to buy is probably 5 or 6. We can't sell 10. The squad will be threadbare again. We need a squad. So the selling of players really is something that's going to probably be a little bit more longer term, apart from those that need to go, actually have to go, because Rashford, Anthony, Sancho, Eriksen, Lindelof, they've all got to go. They're absolutely got to go. Harsh truth is that the quality of this squad is 17th. We are that bad. We have the worst attack in the league, says Based. You're absolutely spot on. You're absolutely spot on. Like, I don't understand those people who want to pin it on Ten Hag or Amarim when every single game, as I said, when we do the player ratings, 70% of the team are shit. Every game, 70% of the team are shit. And that's the manager's fault. Have you ever played football? Have you ever gone to work, had a bad day where you're lazy and can't be arsed, and that's the manager's fault? God, I used to work in an office job, right, where they'd give me work, and my computer screen, I would turn it, and I would be online doing Fantasy Premier League for an hour and a half. And then for the last half an hour of the day, I just scam it. I just go, well, 90% chance that this application's okay. Let's put it through. Because I didn't care. I wasn't doing my job. I didn't care. And that wasn't really, you know, you can't micromanage footballers for 90 minutes when they're on the pitch. And this has been going on all season long. Seen as buying clubs on debt isn't allowed anymore, why haven't the FA stepped in regarding Jim Ratcliffe and the Glazers since the charge was made, says Zenon. I don't know. And going back to that point as well, you could say, well, it's the manager's job to realise people aren't doing very well. He already has. He can't sack them. He hasn't been given any replacements. So if I am that person who is rushing through my work in a bad way because I can't be asked because I'm interested in something else, my manager can't control that. They can only replace me because I'm not very good at my job. Or they can spend a hell of a lot of time in a one-on-one situation trying to make me better. Amarim hasn't had that time, and he hasn't had the chance to replace them yet. So next season's what it's all about for me. Amarim's ambition is too big. He'll walk if not backed. Ineos started off wrong. Sacking manager, sporting director. No one takes blame but the coach. Chaos without accountability, says John. We as fans can't say we like the look of a team before kick-off, then at full-time that these shit players too reactionary, says Joseph. Of course we can. Of course we can. I see a team and I see its potential. After 90 minutes, I see the reality. Of course I can see a team and go, look, mate, how many bloody dinners have you looked at and gone, that looks lovely, and then you taste it and it's not? How many films have you gone to see with a really good cast and a really good director and gone, this looks like it'll be amazing, and then you come out, that was shit? Like, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing reactionary about looking at a team and seeing its potential and then 90 minutes later seeing that they can't be fucking arsed. The people who think Amarim needs to be sacked are the same people who think the wine isn't the reason we are in Europa final. Says Thomas. Never ceases to amaze me how some fans always look for someone to blame but always pick the wrong person. If you think Amarim's to blame, you're lost, says Ben. HK says, when Hamilton left Ineos Mercedes team in F1, they replaced him with 18-year-old Kimi Antonelli. This makes me believe if we sell Bruno, the club will indefinitely invest in youth, says HK. The board, well, I think the youth policy is flawed. I think it's cheap and stupid. Teaching youngsters how to lose and then expecting them to learn how to win. The board should be sacked if they fail in the summer, and we are back to this next season, says Ray. Amarim deserves to be protected for now, but the inexperience in the Premier League is concerning. The season is a write-off, but we need to do better, says Sanil. I think Amarim's inexperience in the Premier League is ridiculously naive, perpetuated by a media that hasn't got a clue. The Premier League is a different league, but I don't think the problem is the Premier League. I don't think he's come into the Premier League and been a rabbit in the headlights. I think he's come into the Premier League and been given a squad that's shit and can't be arsed, and an ownership that is useless. I don't think the problem is, again, maybe I'm missing the point, but it sounds to me like you think Amarim's the problem. You know, the reason we're so bad is because he's not used to the Premier League. I just don't believe in that. Quick word on Xabi Alonso to Real Madrid. Here we go, says Rajaf. Not surprised. I think we all knew that months. I knew that a year ago. Got to back him. I do, however, have mild concerns about his system, says Club 1878. I have no concerns about his system because he hasn't got players who can play it. Anyone, Amarim out, just wants a quick fix for the club. They don't aim their anger at the ownership because they don't actually believe we can remove the Glazers, so they aim it at someone who can easily be replaced, says Patrick. Yeah, you know what it's like, Patrick? It's like those speed vans who... they won't go, you know, in the UK we get these speed vans that park up on a road, and if you go over 30 miles an hour, you'll get a ticket. They tend to park themselves in middle class areas where people will pay it and put up with it, whereas they won't go into certain urban areas because the van will probably get set fire to. And that is exactly what Patrick's talking about there. People don't aim... people aren't fair with their criticism. They just aim it at the easy target. Constantine says, you have to feel for Amarim. He's come on board with virtually no backing. Players of another manager, the passion and fire to win for United. You can see it in their eyes, how bad he wants it. And week after week, he relies on these players who don't care. Oh, he's desperate for the summer. I think Amarim's desperate for the summer. He knows he needs to win the Europa League final, but I don't think he trusts these players to do it. My 4-year-old has got into football. I've got him into United shirt and feel guilty as I've set him up for a lifetime of misery. if the Glazers stay, says Edward. Thank you very much for that. It's been a very long show this morning. I feel like we need to wrap up, but I just want to get through all the super chats. So Jim bought the most expensive seat. Oh, I did that one. Thank you. Oh, no. Sorry. I've lost the live chat. Where are we? I wonder if Ashworth got sacked for believing Southgate Potter was more suited for the squad. I think he did, Tech. I never really wanted Ashworth anyway. Thanks for replying to me, Mark, says Liberton. Bruno is also an attacker, isn't he? And he's part of a championship level attack. Keep a few youngsters, replace the rest. TK Musing says, with 20 million wage bill, Amarim found Porro, both Nunez, Gyökeres, won versus Arsenal in Europa over 3 years. Give him time, says TK. I think he also got rid of 20 players in his first summer at Sporting, didn't he? He won't get that opportunity at United. There should be a contract clause in future owner contracts that say if you intentionally fuck over the club, you're out the door, says Christian. I read yours, Constantine. Amarim did downsize the squad in the winter, so it is down to him as well, says Sanska. Don't be thick. This is not on Amarim. Have the Sporting supporters' words in your head. He needs time to get his players and remove the players. The fact City let him go, no issues, speaks volumes, says Daniel. Sorry, I'm going to have to go back to this from Sanska. Amarim did downsize the squad in the winter, so it's down to him as well. Yeah, so it's down to him that we're in the Europa League final. Thank you. It's down to him that somehow we're in a Europa League final. Yeah, the Premier League's the Premier League, but the players are shit, mate. And you honestly think that we should have kept Anthony and Rashford? I mean, God knows where we'd be if we did. Maybe we would be better, maybe we would be worse. But I thought we wanted a manager to come in and get rid of the Deadwood, which he started to do. The problem wasn't getting rid of Rashford and Anthony. The problem was not bringing an attacker in as a replacement. And who was responsible for that? I've got no problem with getting rid of Rashford and Anthony in January. It's been a massive success. They're both valued players that people want to buy in the summer. The problem was not replacing them. He started the job by getting rid of players that he didn't want, and then the club didn't back him with a replacement. They gave him a left back. We got rid of our two most expensive wingers and didn't bring one in. Anyway, enough is enough. Very good show this morning. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Normal 8 o'clock show tonight. We've got 2 o'clock as well. Let's see what the day brings. But yeah, concerning times at United, but I don't know why people are surprised. It never wasn't surprised. It never wasn't concerning. It's never not been a shit show. I just think people forgot. Take care, everyone. I'll speak to you all in a bit.